South America. For 500 years, a warrior people ruled over Peru and beyond. They were called the Inca, the people of the sun. They built great cities like Machu Picchu, where they worshipped the sun and sacrificed virgins to their gods. Eventually, they would be destroyed by Spanish invaders searching for gold and glory. I'm here seeking a city perhaps even greater than Machu Picchu, one of many still lost in these jungles, where the Incas' history and perhaps their treasure lie undisturbed.
Hi, I'm David Adams, and this is the remote cloud forest of the Peruvian ranges. And this is where the last of the Incas found their refuge, and it's where they built their golden cities, and that's why I'm here.
Because hidden somewhere in this jungle vastness, legend says there are cities still waiting to be found. Cities never sacked by the Spanish. Cities that may conceal hidden Inca treasure, or even the Holy Grail of the Inca Empire, the great golden disk of the sun.
Bueno, Aurelio, aquí es el plan. ¿Recuerdes el camino Inca?
Meet Gary Ziegler, an archaeologist, and someone I've come halfway around the world to meet. Gary's devoted his life to exploring Peru's jungle. If I'm to have any chance of finding a lost city, it's going to be with Gary's help.
We found this wonderful major Inca road, and these Inca roads always go somewhere, so it's a good place to look for ruins.
How are you sure that no one else has been up there?
Well, there's nothing recorded on maps, so there's a really good chance that that no one's been up there.
That's great.
But I'm pretty sure that we're going to find something significant up there.
The Vilcabamba, the Incas' final refuge, the place from which they waged war on the Spanish, and where they built their lost cities. To get there, I plan to head through this sacred valley, down the Urubamba River, before arriving at the very edge of the Amazon basin. But my journey starts in the old Inca capital, Cusco. In the late afternoon light, it's easy to imagine Cusco in its heyday, as the city of gold, so intoxicating to the first Europeans to see it. Right now, it's midwinter in the southern hemisphere. Time for Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun. The oldest surviving Inca celebration, a vital link to Peru's past. Gary Ziegler's seen it all before, though. He couldn't wait, and so he's headed straight to the mountains. But I plan to take my time and get a feel for the people whose past I'm seeking. The sun set many years ago on the Inca Empire. But something of the spirit of the Incas lives on in music and dance. It's here in the people. And it's here in the stones of the buildings, so perfectly constructed 500 years ago. The sun was the Incas' supreme god, and the temples they built to worship it in were among the greatest pre-industrial buildings in the Americas. The most celebrated of all was the Coricancha, the fabled Temple of Gold.
Well, these walls look pretty bare now, but once they were totally covered in gold right throughout the whole temple. And there were golden llamas and golden idols in these recesses, the like of which the world had never seen. In fact, the only 3 Europeans ever to see them were the ones who discovered them, and they also took most of it away. Part of what they took included 700 sheets of gold. Each one weighed 4.5 pounds. But the only thing they didn't take was the great golden disc of the sun.
But someone did take it, because by the time the Spanish returned to get it, it was gone. To this day, it's never been found. Its final resting place remains one of the world's great mysteries. Most likely, it's in the Vilcabamba, where Gary Ziegler's gone and where I plan to meet him in a week. The journey takes me in the footsteps of one of the world's great explorers, Hiram Bingham, the man who put the Vilcabamba on the map. Like Gary Ziegler, he was an adventurer, the discoverer of the most famous Inca city of them all, Machu Picchu. But Gary Ziegler's also an archaeologist, so he's the perfect expedition partner. By now, I can't wait to follow him into the mountains. And that means I need transport.
Buenas tardes, señora.
Oh, mister, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. The Valley Sagrado?
¿A dónde quiere usted viajar?
A typical way of getting from place to place in Peru is by buying a seat on a truck.
150.
150. Okay, fantastic.
Correcto.
Very good.
Muy bien.
So for 150 soles, about $40, I have the doubtful honor of squeezing in for a long, slow ride.
Vamos a prender el carro.
It's a wind-up.
Sí.
The driver is Don Tieflo. His offsider, Ephraim.
I think this is it's all about technique, this sort of thing.
Ya,
Yeah?
ahí sí.
I think it's like a sweet spot somewhere. Okay.
Amigo Efraín,
Efraín,
por favor,
can you give us a hand, mate?
manito.
This may be one of the oldest trucks on the road, but no one knows that road better than Don Tieflo and Ephraim. With their help, I will follow a trail over 500 years old, a trail that leads deep into the Peruvian rainforest, to a place of ritual sacrifice, sun worship, and golden cities, the lost realm of the Incas. The Incas believed they were the children of the sun, born on an island in Lake Titicaca. This was their Garden of Eden, the place where it all began. Where I'm going, though, is the place where it all ended. The place where the Incas made their last stand against the Spanish, and where they're supposed to have built their lost cities. The Incas ruled over the largest empire since the Romans. And like the Romans, they built an elaborate network of roads, stretching from the equator halfway to the South Pole, and crisscrossing the continent from the Amazon all the way to the Pacific.
This is a lookout area overlooking Taray.
Very steep all the way down.
Don Tieflo might be right about keeping your eyes on the road, but sometimes it's easier said than done, because there isn't much of a road to keep your eye on. He's agreed to take me to the top end of the Sacred Valley, to the town of Oliente Tambo, where I plan to hire porters for my journey into the Vilcabamba.
Mucho accidente,
Yes, there have been many accidents.
The road is full of sharp bends.
His friends call him El Rey de la Carretera, the king of the road. He's been hauling wool and corn back and forth between Cusco and the Sacred Valley for over 50 years, and probably in the same truck. On a hillside near the ruins of Pizac, I get my first look at the Urubamba Valley, the Sacred Valley.
Esta quebrada, este valle, pequeño valle,
This galley along this small valley ends up in a creek which flows into a big river,
Canota,
the Vilcanota River,
baja
which goes down to the Sacred Valley of the Incas.
Valle Sagrado de los Incas.
I can't believe it's amazing that they built them by hand, right?
Sí. Luego las andenerías
Then the terraces of the ruins of Pizac.
Pisa. Acá tenemos la parte
This
más
is the most
grande,
impressive,
lo más grandioso,
most
lo más
elaborate
fino.
section.
A forte?
The Pizac
Fortaleza
fort
más fino.
guarded what was the breadbasket of the Inca Empire. Rank upon rank of terraced gardens line the valley. When the Spanish first arrived, they were still planted with corn and potatoes that were the staple foods of the 15 million strong Inca nation. These days, most lie overgrown and ignored. In fact, Peru produces less food today than it did before the Spanish conquest. One of the many advantages of travelling with a veteran truck driver like Don Tieflo is that he knows all the best truck stops.
No hay como un
There is
plato
nothing like a
típico
good typical dish of
de estos
cracklings
chicharrones después de una
after a
buena
long day's
jornada
work.
de trabajo.
You find small roadside kitchens like this all over Peru, serving up the same food that kept the Incas going, corn and potatoes, with the favourite meat of the conquistadors, pork, in this case, deep fried.
Good food.
Very good food. Very good food.
Casera, por favor.
3
Tres
glasses of
chichas.
chicha, please.
Then there's
Que sabe
chicha,
usted-
the maize beer that was the sacred ceremonial drink of the Incas. Today, though, it's mostly drunk as a low-alcohol alternative to regular beer.
Vaso grande.
Sí,
I'd like a big glass, please.
chicha. Chicha de
Traditionally,
cola,
brewing
vamos a tomar
chicha is women's work. Recipes are passed down the generations, mother to
ahora. A
daughter.
ver qué tal.
As a result,
Ojalá que-
no two brews are
Ojalá
ever
que
the same.
le agrade.
Eche, señora.
Fill it up, madam.
Llénelo,
Right up. I want
llénelo.
David
Necesito
to
que-
really try this.
Tiene que tomar, David.
If I get through this, I deserve a medal, I think.
Salud, David. Salud, Efraín.
It's actually very good.
¿Qué tal?
But they do all have three things in common: maize, water, and a magic
La
ingredient.
chicha la preparan con jora.
Uh-huh.
Y las mujeres mastican un poco y ¡ta! Para que fermente.
No,
Sí.
what he's just told me is this stuff is prepared by basically women chewing the corn up in their mouths and then spitting it into a barrel, and then it ferments. It doesn't taste as good as I thought it did. No,
Vale,
not for me.
oye, pues, ya pues toma.
Salud.
Toma, pues este hombre. Ahora con la carretera ya es más fácil.
Back on the road again, and Don Tieflo and Ephraim and their magnificent old truck have got me almost all the way to my destination. Of all places to stall in the sacred valley, this is probably the worst. Impossible to get off the bridge and impassable for traffic. And hand cranking this thing was never easy. For anyone.
Crank it up faster, David.
The Incas didn't have truck gods, of course. In fact, they didn't use wheeled transport at all. But if they had, I would have offered up a short prayer right now. Getting to Ollantaytambo on time provides an unexpected bonus. The day we arrive, a local carnival is in full swing. People have come into town from all the surrounding villages. This means I can most likely hire the porters for my journey right here. Not having to go from village to village will save days.
David, te presento a Alejandro.
Alejandro is from the Patacancha Valley, the same valley Hiram Bingham hired his porters from.
Del Valle Patacancha.
5 hombres.
Kami con mas kamun ki sokta planisheki campus en Ispa. Ya, muy bien. Poconche camello.
Okay. So I think I've got my porters.
Which means I can have the rest of the day off to enjoy the carnival. One of Peru's links to its past is the traditional dress of the Andean women. The hats, heavy petticoats and plaited hair are not Peruvian at all. It's a dress code imposed on them in the 18th century by Charles III of Spain. Back then, he ordered all his colonial subjects to dress in imitation of the Spanish peasantry of the day. 250 years later, most of them still do. The main event is a competition where riders try to grab a corn cob suspended on a rope. The idea is simple enough, but like trying to start Don Tieflo's truck, it's not as easy as you might think. Beginner's luck, maybe, but not so lucky for the prize.
No, thank you for you. Didn't quite bank on that. I don't think I'll be able to get chicken through customs. Thanks.
The Incas not only worshipped the sun, they also celebrated the natural world, thunder and lightning, the mountains, lakes and rivers. The Urubamba River is one of the Incas' most sacred. And when you see it at its mighty, thundering wildest, it's easy to understand why. At yesterday's carnival, I met this man, Eric Arenas, and he's offered to take me to meet my porters downriver. It's a 9-hour walk to our rendezvous point, or about 90 minutes by river. Trouble is, Eric's a former Olympian and Peruvian kayak champion, and I'm not. This is as good as whitewater kayaking gets, and as dangerous. Get caught in the undertow on the wrong side of one of these rocks, and your kayak will snap in two, and so will you. For me, this is a recurring cycle of terror, adrenaline rush, and calm. But when you fall in, it's nothing but terror. Time slows down, directions get confused. Fight a river like this, and you lose.
Well, I've been out of my depth there, but at least I'm here. I'm going to save these as well.
Rest can come later though. Tomorrow I climb to the roof of the Andes and find the first clues pointing to a place that's remained hidden from the world for over 400 years. "400 years ago, a band of Spanish soldiers emerged from the Peruvian jungle to gaze on this land, their long-sought prize, the Vilcabamba. This was the rebel Incas' hideout, their last bastion against the pillaging Spaniards, the place they hid what was left of their gold and culture. I must go deep into this mountain stronghold, from the edge of the Sacred Valley through the high mountain passes of the Andes to Urak Rumi. I'd left the river unexpectedly early, but luckily it's only a short walk to my rendezvous point.
Sorry I'm late.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Nice to see you.
Me presenta mi amigo David.
Hey, pleased to meet you.
Alejandro's friend is David Espayo, translator, shaman, and for the next 2 weeks, an invaluable source of information about all things Inca.
Yeah, have you been waiting long?
Not too much, you know, but we're just enjoying some drinks. And
I'd love a beer actually.
Would you like to
It's been
join
a long
us?
way.
Let's go.
True to his word, Alejandro has organised a small team of porters. These guys have spent all their working lives doing nothing but haul gear through the Vilcabamba. Even so, we're planning on going places even they've never been. Luckily though, Alejandro has organised us a mule skinner and guide called Juvenal Cobos, known as the Old Man of the Mountains. But before we go anywhere, coca. Just about everyone in the mountains chews these bitter-tasting leaves.
So, how do you take this?
Well, basically what you have to do is take the end of the leaves. Before you chew it, you just off the mother.
Coca was sacred to the Inca, which is hardly surprising as it's a kind of wonder plant. It suppresses hunger and altitude sickness, relieves stomach aches. It even allegedly eases the pain of childbirth. But most of all, it provides energy.
But the only thing this stuff doesn't do is give you a high. Despite being the same stuff that they make cocaine from, you'd have to actually eat about a ton of it just to get any narcotic effect. It's more like coffee. It just gives you a good buzz when you're up in the mountains.
It's said that by chewing coca, Inca messengers could run 150 miles a day. We're planning a much more modest 10 miles. Legend has it that the Vilcabamba was where the Inca hid their treasure, and it's easy to understand why. It's not just that it's a long way from anywhere, it's also the crippling combination of the terrain coupled with the altitude. What's normally a 10-minute stroll at sea level becomes an hour-long haul at this height.
When Hiram Bingham first came up here, he was an absolute amateur, and so it really hit him hard. We're nearly at 10,000 feet, and he'd be stopping every 50 feet. Well, I can understand why. It's a pretty hard slog up here.
"10,000 feet, 3,000 meters. Doesn't matter which system you use, when you start getting this high, it's hard going in anyone's language. The Andes Range is the longest mountain chain on Earth. The terrain varies from jungle to glaciated ice peaks. At this altitude, even the slightest breeze is bone-chilling.
It's getting cold up here, you know?
You know, we have a saying here in the Andes.
Yeah, what?
Sasanke nyam purinapa kashan.
What does that mean?
Whatever goes up keeps on going up. What do you think?
Man, I'm just going to be happy when we start going down.
Sadly, that's still a long way away. Every now and then, though, we do get to a ridgetop, and the terrain flattens out for a short stretch of pampas.
What's so exhausting when you get up here onto the pampas after climbing up, we're about 12,000 here, is that it's swampland, sinkholes, and it's just exhausting walking through this mud, and there's mosquitoes everywhere.
But where there's water, there's often an Inca site, because a reliable water supply was an essential requirement when the Incas were looking for places to build their cities. On the late afternoon of the 9th of August 1911, Hiram Bingham came across this Inca watercourse. As soon as he saw it, he knew he was near a significant site. And this was it, Urak Rumi, the White Rock, known to the Inca as the House of the Rising Sun. Well, there's not much of a house left these days. And the White Rock is more of a black rock because of the lichen covering it. The Inca believed certain mountains, springs, caves and rocks were all endowed with magical significance. Like shrines along a pilgrimage route, Urak Rumi was one such place.
Why was it so important to the Incas?
Oh, this because Manco Inca, one of the last Inca ruler, who set up his new capital here in Bitcos, in this area. So this was like the shrine, like the temple of the sun.
Okay.
One of the most important places in this area.
The Inca were stonemasons without peer. And their legacy can still be seen in the way these guys make a camp oven. The idea is to light a fire inside, heat the rocks until they're ready to explode, then throw in your potatoes, collapse the stones, and put on your meat. Cover it all over and then let it cook for an hour or so. But not all cooking is done in the oven. Spit roasting is the preferred way of preparing the most traditional of all Andean meats, guinea pig.
Oh, it's good.
You like it?
Yeah. So did the Incas eat a lot of guinea pigs?
Yeah, on special occasions, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were guests, you know.
Because back home we keep them as pets.
No. We eat them here.
So the people that live up in these remote areas, do they still consider themselves as Incas?
Native, yeah.
Yeah.
Quechua people.
Yeah. So is that do they take on some of the ways of the Inca? Do they think of themselves as Incas
Sure.
still?
Yeah, I feel like that myself.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you look like a lot of the
Thank you.
paintings
I
and
got my
drawings I've seen.
nose, you know, like. Thank you. Nice.
The spirit of the Inca is not only alive and well in David Espeo, it's also here in these mountains. And tomorrow we head for one of the most sacred of all Inca sites. A place so remote, more gringos will climb Mount Everest this year than have been to where we're going in the last 400 years. High on a mountain plateau in the Peruvian Andes, a ceremony to greet the dawn, unchanged since the time of the Inca. Holy man David Espeo leads the porters in asking the mountain gods for their blessing and safe passage. Today we must climb to one of the most sacred of all sites in the Vilcabamba, Inkawasi. But first, we present gifts to the mountains, and the nature of our destination demands only the most powerful offerings. A piece of guinea pig skull, llama fetuses, amulets in the shape of humans, and herbal alcohol. Its potency is increased by being offered in a shell carried to the mountains all the way from sea level. Only after the mountain gods have been invoked and the offerings burnt can the next stage of my journey commence.
Pachamama.
This is the hardest leg of all. Trekking high in the cold thin air, we must pass through the cloud line on our way from Yupanka to Inkawasi, perched high in the Puncuyoc mountains. Yupanka's where we agreed to meet archaeologist Gary Ziegler, so David Espeo and I decide to strike out on our own, leaving the porters to locate Gary's campsite. Weather in the Andes can change in moments. This is called cloud forest for a good reason, and it's not long before the drizzle starts. They may have been among the greatest road builders of all time, but maintenance in the Andes seems to have died out with the last Inca.
Well, believe it or not, this was once an Inca road, but over 400 years, these things have all collapsed. So a lot of the time you just have to go straight up the hill.
The Inca also ripped up many of the Vilcabamba's roads and pathways so the Spanish couldn't follow them, especially if they led to an important place like Inkawasi. Our first glimpse. It's still 3 hours away across a mist-filled valley, but in view at last. For the Incas who tried to recreate their empire in the Vilcabamba, this was their equivalent of the Vatican, their Mecca. The place where the last of the Incas kept their most holy relics. Hidden in the clouds 4,000 meters above sea level, 13,000 vertical feet of rugged terrain has protected this most sacred of sites for centuries. Even when you're almost there, climbing the carved steps leading to the top of the ridge is equivalent to taking the stairs to the top of the Empire State Building.
So
6 hours after leaving the porters, we finally arrive. And right on cue, the sun comes out.
And this is where they think the golden disc of the sun came?
Looks like, this looks like a place here, and I mean...
Inkawasi is a testament to the decline and fall of the Inca Empire.
It's one of the highest, in the Vilcabamba mountain range.
For nearly 500 years, the Incas had ruled most of South America from Cusco, the richest and most fabulous city of the Americas. It took the Spanish only a few short years to reduce them from mighty palaces to this humble temple. But at least it remained undisturbed. The conquistadors never got here.
It doesn't surprise me that the Spanish didn't get up here. Their horses couldn't have walked up, and with all that body armour, it would have been impossible. It also doesn't surprise me that Bingham didn't get up here, because it really is a hell of a hike. What is surprising is that the Incas got up here at all and built this place.
No one really knows if Inkawasi ever housed the golden disc. No one's ever found it, but they chose its location for a very good reason.
Look at, see the reflection over there?
Yeah?
In that lake? So that's a wild rock you see over there.
Well, this is why it was built here.
Yes. So see, the clouds now is covering this, but when the clouds clears, you can be able to see the reflection of that white rock in the lake. So I think that's why the beliefs of people here know that the Inca turned into this white rock.
Oh, really?
It became like a sacred. That's the main reason why they built up this temple here.
I can see
such
it.
a,
It's
such a
beautiful.
location,
Because of the nature of the terrain, the valley Inkawasi sits above is nearly always filled with cloud. However, it generally clears for a short while around midday. When it does, you can see a tiny lake reflecting the white stone outcrop. To the Inca, this was sacred geography at its most potent. Our two-man pilgrimage over, and we're in luck. The porters have located Gary's camp. Gary's been here a couple of days, and he's already probed into the jungle.
Bueno, Aurelio, ¿recuerdas el camino Inca que encontramos la semana pasada?
Gary's an old-school explorer, one of the last of a dying breed, a modern-day Hiram Bingham, who's devoted his life to helping locate Peru's lost cities.
So what we plan to do is to go up to about this level of altitude.
How high is it going to be?
It's going to be above 3,000. I'm guessing about 3,700 meters. And then we're going to clear trails and look for indications.
This is what I've come all this way to experience. the chance to find one of the Inca's lost cities. The thought of it affects us all. The atmosphere is electric.
I'm pretty sure that we're going to find something significant up there.
And find something we did, like Hiram Bingham 90 years before us. We're about to hack our way through some of the densest jungle on Earth and enter another of the Inca's lost cities. Peru's Vilcabamba region is home to some of the densest jungle on the planet. This is the domain of the puma, the scorpion, and the deadly bushmaster viper. But right now, they're the least of my worries.
One of the things about travelling in this jungle is all the bugs that get you. I've actually got one, a really fierce one, called the puma wakanchi, which translates to make the puma cry. And I tell you, when it bites you, it really does.
I'm on my way from the Puncuyoc mountains to Les Esparta in central Peru. But before we can go anywhere, we must cross the sacred Vilcanota River.
Here we go, guys. Now this river is full.
The Vilcabamba is cut off on all sides by rivers. That's what made it such a perfect stronghold for the Inca.
Okay, I'm going out over the edge.
Okay.
I'm out. Gotcha. Oh,
And while getting across is one thing, getting out is quite another.
good.
And it's not just me. There's quite an art to keeping this thing steady. On dry land, the porters are as sure-footed as they come, but even they find the river crossing challenging. The climb to the ruins is tough, a 1 in 10 incline. Pack a trail out here one day, and 6 months later, it's gone, reclaimed by the jungle. Little wonder cities and temples still remain hidden from view. After 4 hours of steady marching, a glimpse of a wall. Then another. Then a watercourse. And suddenly it seems as if the jungle is cloaking buildings everywhere.
Oh, this is amazing.
Look at this wall. Can you believe this? What have we found?
In amazement, we push forward through the overgrown streets and into buildings long ruined.
Well, that goes on and on.
At moments like this, it's hard to know what to say.
Here? David, look at this window. This is definitely Inca.
It keeps going.
David, ustedes pueden esperar allá, descansen.
Gary tells the porters to take a break while we try to work out the extent of our find.
No wonder they never found it. I mean, it's totally covered in jungle.
I don't even know what to say. I don't have the foggiest of what...
Have you ever seen anything this big? Is this the biggest thing you found?
I think it is. I have no idea the extent of it.
Oh, yeah, look at this view.
Wow. That's the Vilcanota River. This is typically Inca.
Well, because they build on views like this.
Yeah, the river was one of the most sacred objects. The Vilcanota was the Vilcamayu, the earthly representation of the Milky Way. One of the most important things to the Inca.
This is really overgrown too.
This could well be a temple to the river. And I'll bet, up in the clouds, I'll bet we're looking exactly at the ice peak Veronica, which was also very important.
So this could be a really major find.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We don't know what we've got. We're going to get the guys up here and clear it and see if we have time to see what else is around us. There's got to be more.
Well, let's get a break.
Okay, let's take a break.
And,
I'm about wiped out. How about you?
But when you've got ruins to clear, breaks don't last long. At first, we put our backs into it. Then, as the worst of the undergrowth is cleared, we ease up, being careful not to damage anything. And gradually, the building starts to take shape. Moss-covered walls see daylight for the first time in centuries. Before too long, the jungle starts to give up its secret.
Vamos a ver la distancia de este muro.
For centuries, the cities of the Incas disappeared from view. Like Atlantis, El Dorado and Shangri-La, they became places of legend, sought after but never uncovered.
You know, one of the odd things about Hiram Bingham was that when he came and discovered these sites, he knew nothing about archaeology. And he travelled around with this book, which is the Royal Geographical Society's Hints to Travellers. It's got everything you need to know about discovering an ancient site, if you happen to, like we've just done. Even got a little ruler. Thing is, I know nothing about this, of course, but Gary does, so I'm relying totally on him and not the book.
But it seems our euphoria is premature. We are not the first, as we'd hoped.
So,
Gary Ziegler's identified
we
it
get to name it?
as the town of Sapamaka, a place noted but never visited by Hiram Bingham.
Yeah, give us
We're going to finish over here.
Go ahead. I'll keep working.
In fact, it's almost never been visited at all, and certainly never been filmed. The Incas may be long gone, but these walls still stand in mute witness to the glory of the greatest empire of the ancient Americas. I wonder what may lie hidden and forgotten here. Lost gold, the sweat of the sun as the Incas called it, maybe even the golden disc itself. I had set out from the other side of the planet to find such a place. Now it will be for others to take on the painstaking work of exploration. One day I'll come back, when Gary Ziegler and others have pried its secrets from the stones. For now, though, it's enough just to know that there are places like this, still waiting to be found. And that is what always keeps me going on my journeys to the ends of the earth.